There we go. So just know that I'm going to be videoing myself. You won't be in the video at all. Andrew, if you want to move, do you care? No. Okay. So I will be right here with you can see that's okay. All right. So when we are measuring, we want to make sure we're using the right amounts and then the right measuring technique and the measuring tool. So your pancake lab plan is going to be divided like your pasta and rotini and pasta and carrots lab plan. So everybody's going to be having different jobs that all work together to come in to make one recipe, just like last time. So the first person's job, person number 1, says to measure flour into a large mixing bowl. Okay, so we're going to take some time to learn what that looks like. So remember that on your recipe, that there's always directions, and then there are directions on the bottom, and then there is ingredients up here on the top. So when it says measure flour, how much flour do I need? I have to go up and look at the ingredients list. So 1 cup of all-purpose flour. Okay. So for 1 cup of flour, so if you look on your sheet where it says how to measure, okay, we're going to go down to let's see, flour specifically, because flour is a special ingredient. So we're at the flour stage. I'm going to use a dry measuring cup. Okay, so if you want to write that, a dry measuring cup, because this is a dry ingredient, pretty straightforward. But sometimes gets mixed up, especially if you're short on time or something like that. Then you're going to use the flour bowl to stir the flour. Okay, stir it up because flour is really powdery and we want it nice and fluffy. What used to happen is we would used to use a sifter. Does anybody have one of those at home or have seen somebody use it? Where they put the flour in the top and then they crank the side and it makes it come out nice and fluffy with no clumps. We used to have to do that because when you would have flour that was made in a mill at home, the flour would clump up over time, and then you'd want to get the clumps out because you don't want clumps of flour in your pancakes. So they would use that sifter. Now they put chemicals in our flour to make sure that it doesn't do that. So we don't necessarily need the sifter, but we still need it light and fluffy like it was sifted. So if we just scooped down in here and packed it in, we would get too much flour in this cup. Okay, so if that's how you're measuring at home to make your recipes might be turning out a little bit dry, okay, a little bit hard because you have too much flour. So what I do is I just stir this up nice and light, and you can really feel the difference once you start stirring. And then I'm going to spoon this in there really lightly to keep it nice and fluffy. I don't want to tap on the edge of the cup or anything like that because that's going to pack the flour back down. We want to make sure that stays nice and fluffy. Okay, so we're going to fill that up, always heaping full, and then you're going to take a leveler, nice straight edge. Okay, if you don't have a leveler at home, you can use something, but make sure that it is straight. Some of the fancy like knives and stuff have divots in them, and then they're not perfect. Okay, this is how I use my leveler, kind of like a snowplow. Can you see? Okay, not this way. That's not going to be very effective. Okay, snowplow. Okay, and I'll level that cup right off. 1 cup of flour into a large mixing bowl. Okay, got it? So what I like to write under flour is stir, spoon in, and level off. Okay, can you remember that? Like tomorrow, if you would look at that, or even Wednesday or Thursday, depending on when we do our lab, would you be able to remember? Because that's what I'm going to watch for. I'm going to watch for you to stir, to spoon it in without packing, and then to level it off. So under flour, in the how to measure bucket, stir, spoon, level off. And then I put DMC, dry measuring cup. Okay. All right, next it says measure the salt and add to the flour bowl. Up on the top of my recipe, it says to use 1/4 teaspoon of salt. So my teaspoons my measuring spoons up at the top are in 4 different denominations, okay? So if I, or different divisions. So if I look at my measuring spoons, so we're up at the top of the picture on your note sheet. I want you to label which spoon is which, okay? So this big guy, do you know what he's called? Tablespoon, okay? So you're gonna write 1 tablespoon, or you can write it 1 capital T. That means capital T means tablespoon because it's big, right? A big T is tablespoon. A table is a pretty big object. You can remember if a recipe asks for a tablespoon that you're looking for this big measuring spoon. Okay. The next one is the next one down is a teaspoon. Okay. 1 teaspoon. So a teacup is littler, right? It's smaller. It's the littler one. Okay. And then we use a lowercase t as an abbreviation also. Okay. Then there's a half teaspoon and then a 1/4 of a teaspoon. So you're labeling on your sheet what each one of these are, so that if you're looking for a 1/4 teaspoon, okay, you shouldn't have to copy from me. You should be listening to my voice and what I'm telling you and then labeling from there, okay? So notice I have the small lowercase t's up here for the little spoons. Those are teaspoons. I have a 1 teaspoon and then a half and then a 1/4. Some measuring spoons have extras in between. They might have an 1/8 of a teaspoon. They might have a half of a tablespoon. Gets a little bit tricky. But we just have the 4 here at our kitchen, and we can work off of that just fine. Okay. So I'm going to use a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. So if I'm now in the how to measure box, how to measure, and I'm going to use dry ingredients under the measuring spoons. Okay, dry ingredients, measuring spoons. So all you have to do is scoop and scrape. Okay, scoop it down in, get it heaping full, and then level it off. Just like that. Okay. So get it heaping full. Make sure to go over the top so you make sure that it's full, and then scrape. Now, where did it tell me to add this? Into the flour bowl. Make sure that you pay extra attention to how you put your ingredients together, because if you add them in the wrong order, that will make a difference. Okay. Now it says just to mix. I'm just mixing that flour in. Person number 2 is going to measure sugar, baking powder, baking soda, and add it into the flour bowl. So sugar is nice and easy. It's a dry ingredient. We're going to use the dry measuring cups. Okay. So up on the top by the picture, you have, again, different amounts of measuring cups. The biggest one is 1 C, a lowercase c for cup. 1 lowercase c for cup. Then the next biggest one on your picture is 1/2 a cup. So 1/2 and then lowercase c. Next is 1/3 of a cup. So 1/3 and then lowercase c. And then 1/4, so 1/4 lowercase c. So get those pictures labeled up top so that you know which is which. And again, you might have a 3/4 cup at home. You might have an 1/8 of a cup at home. Kind of depends on, but you just need to use your good math skills to find the one that you need. So for sugar, it says, let's see, I think just a little bit, 1 tablespoon of sugar. So if I can't use these cups, then I go down to my measuring spoons. Okay, and my measuring spoons say that I need 1 tablespoon. Okay, so you can just dip that in. Mine had a little bit of oil in it. Go ahead and open the door. So you can just dip it right in. So scoop and scrape. Okay, so that's what you're gonna write for dry measuring or dry ingredients. So under dry ingredients, how to measure, you're gonna write scoop and scrape.
Hello. I'm with the yearbook staff.
Sure.
I'm here to take pictures to whoever is participating in the
Western Day.
Yes, and this requires either like a hat or flannel.
Okay. So do you want to maybe just gather it over here right here quickly?
Yeah, sure.
For a quick picture. So if you're dressed up for Western Day, just go quickly because I got lots to do. Okay, Andrew? Thanks. Karin, come on. You'll be fine. Okay? Okay, I can do it too. I got take a picture. Move on. So we have our sugar in there. We need our baking powder and our baking soda. So it's asking for Alexander. I told you already once, right? Okay, 1 teaspoon of baking powder. Now know that there's a difference between baking powder and baking soda. Okay, the baking soda is in a box and the baking powder is in a canister. There is a difference. Make sure that you pay attention to what you need to use. So 1 teaspoon of baking powder. The thing about baking powder is you have a leveler right in the top of the cup. Okay, so here's your leveler right there in the top of the cup. So you're gonna scoop and then you're gonna pull on the level right here in order to level that off as you're pulling it out of the container. Add it to the flour because that's what it says in your recipe. Okay. Next, it's asking for baking soda. Half a teaspoon of baking soda. Okay. And so I'm gonna find my half teaspoon. Again, this one has a leveler right into it. So right there, so I'm just gonna scoop it in like this, okay? And then scrape it off to level it. Do you see how that leveled? Now you're gonna have to do these jobs in the kitchen. So make sure that you're paying attention so that if you get one of these jobs, you're gonna be a asset to your group and you're gonna know what to do. Always just mixing things in together to evenly distribute those little ingredients in the flour. Okay. Next it says that we're gonna make a well in the center of the flour. And a well just means like a hole. So I'm gonna push the flour up around the edge of the bowl, okay? Because later we're gonna add the ingredients into there. Now it says person number 3. So meanwhile, person number 3 is going to be working on this while those 2 people were measuring the stuff that's here. It says crack an egg into a small bowl or a dish. You can use a coffee cup, you can use anything you want. We want to crack it into something separate so that we know that we don't have any shells and that the egg is not rotten or have anything in it. Okay. So when you crack an egg, I want you to use the side of the dish that you're working on. Okay. Some people, I used to tell kids to use crack the egg on the counter, but what happens is they'll leave kind of some of the yolk on the counter, like they don't wipe that up when they crack it, and then that could be a cause for making people sick from how you eat or how you cook. Okay. So you're gonna take your egg. If your egg is standing straight up and down, you're gonna go right in the center. So crack right in the center. You don't want to crack through. You just want to crack it a little bit because if we crack it through, that's when the yolk is going to be running down or the white is going to be running down the side. Okay. So I'm going to take my fingers, push down in. Okay. I'm using this kind of motion. So down in the egg and split apart. Okay, down in the egg, split apart. I'm cradling the egg in my fingers, okay? I don't want to push too far. I really don't even want to get my thumbs wet. I'm just going to pull apart, and I didn't do a great job of it this time, but you should be able to put this egg back together like a puzzle, okay? So that way you know that you have no big shells in your egg. And if you have shells, you just take them out and put them in the garbage. You can use a spoon to catch a little eggshell. Okay. Crack an egg and then add it to a medium-sized mixing bowl. Now, does it say add it to the flour? No, don't add it to the flour. We had this one mistake at home this weekend where we added an egg to the flour. Guess what happens? Clumpy flour. Like it doesn't mix in very well. You want to basically most recipes you're going to make your dry ingredients and mix them, your liquid ingredients and mix them, and then you're going to put those 2 things together. Okay? So we added our egg to a large mixing bowl. Next, it says When person number 1, 2, 3, and 4 get done, pour the milk mixture into the flour mixture. So this person is going to be waiting a little bit until they're able to mix the batter. Person number 4, using the milk in a liquid measuring cup. Add the milk to the egg bowl. Measure the oil in the same manner and add to the milk egg mixture. Okay, so it says a liquid measuring cup. So up top you labeled a liquid measuring cup, correct? Okay, you labeled the liquid measuring cup and you are going to, okay, you're going to take a look at the divisions on your liquid measuring cup. So notice we have ounces, we have cup, we have pint, okay? Sometimes, yep, here's milliliter, here's liter, deciliter, okay? You have all of those things that you're probably learning in science. True? Milla, deci, centa. Have you learned those things in science yet? You will, okay? It's a both thing. It's a life thing. It's a cool thing, okay? So, milliliter, liter, we're not going to use that side. That's the metric side. We're going to use the cup, 3/4 of a cup. Go ahead and write them down. We're on the picture at the top of your sheet. Okay, so cup, 3/4 of a cup. Okay, half cup, 1/4 of a cup. Make sure you're using the right lines to write down your information. And then it's also going to give you a spot where we can split this cup into thirds. So 3/3, which is 1 cup, 2/3, and then 1/3. Okay, so if you have any recipe that's asking you for a liquid ingredient in the form of cups, you're going to use a liquid measuring cup. Okay, so it asks for milk, and it says 1 cup of milk. Okay, now if you go down where it says how to measure, where it says liquid ingredients, okay, you're going to put your liquid measuring cup, write this down, put your liquid measuring cup on a level surface. Then you're going to get down at eye level and you're going to pour that milk in just until the edge is up to the 1 cup line. Now you want to be careful not to go over because we don't want to pour milk back into this container. Why? Yeah. It's okay, guess. Why wouldn't I pour, like if I went over, why wouldn't I pour milk back into this container? Yeah. Could spill, yep, Jasmine. Right, we've been touching the cup and there it may have been dirty before that. So we don't want to contaminate this entire gallon of milk by pouring that back into there, okay? We are as clean as we possibly can. We're going to use it in our recipe, but we don't want to have that bacteria grow over time that gets into the gallon of milk, okay? It says add to the egg mixture. Now we have to measure oil in the same manner and add to the milk egg mixture. So it says for oil, 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil. I'm getting the egg mixed up, making sure that the yolk is all broken up. Most of the time you want a mixture so that you can not see the bits of each type of ingredient that you put in. Okay, so where do I fill up for 2 tablespoons? Where do I fill on this by measuring? Yep, Olivia? No? Where do I, like, I'm going to put oil in. Where do I put oil up? I need 2 tablespoons. How do I do that? I have a liter, milliliters, deciliters. Are those the same as tablespoons? Like here's a 2. Should I fill it up to here? Ooh, no, because different types of measurements are different, right? So what do I do for 2 tablespoons? Use the measuring spoons. Perfect. Okay. So with the measuring spoons under liquid ingredients, So I'm on your sheet, measuring spoons, liquid ingredients, okay? What I'm gonna do is measure over a separate bowl or a cup, okay? So if I have my oil, I'm gonna reuse my tablespoon. It has sugar in it, is that okay? Why would this be okay to reuse this with sugar, Julia? There is sugar in my recipe already. So if there wasn't, that would be a problem, okay? So I'm gonna take this oil and I'm gonna measure over this bowl that I used to crack my egg because I want to get this super full and level. But what happens if I would put too much in? It would all spill to the bottom bowl. If my recipe bowl is underneath that, how do I know how much I put in there? Like, how do I know how much I spilled? So I want to make sure I have a nice even level. I'm going to work really closely to my bowl. I've seen people go in the lab and try to like make it all the way across the kitchen, like trying to not spill this, okay? Work right next to the bowl that you're going to be measuring in, okay? So that way it's just a quick pour and down, okay? Again, I'm not adding this to the flour. I'm putting all the liquid ingredients together because that's what my recipe has called for, okay? If it says add it to the flour in your recipe, then add it to the flour. But this time, nope, please don't do that. All right, keep this over here. Okay, now at this point, somebody else is going to be working on heating up the griddle or the pan. We have these nice big pans in the kitchens that I would like you to use. And it says preheat a lightly oiled griddle or skillet over medium-high heat. So how do I lightly oil a griddle? Yep. Okay, so you can put a little drop of oil in, just a little drop, and then you can spread it around, okay? And that's what I'll do right now. You could also use like spray, cooking spray. If you use cooking spray, you want to make sure that you're always tipping your pan straight up and down like this, keeping the spray aerosol can straight up and down, and then you're going to spray over the sink or over the garbage can so that way you don't make the floor all slippery full of oil because that would be a hazard. So just a little bit of oil. I don't want a whole bunch because I don't want to be deep frying my pancakes. Okay, that might be good in a different application. And then I'm going to take my spatula, or you could take a paper towel, and I'm just going to wipe it around the bottom of the pan. Checking to make sure that my stove top that I started is getting hot. Now, how would I make sure that this is ready for pancakes? How do I know it's ready? Perfect. Yep, you're gonna just put a few drops of water. So right now, I'm gonna just put a few drops. Did you hear anything? No. Okay, it's not ready yet. Now we have to be very careful to watch that carefully because that oil that you put in it'll start to smoke, and then this whole school will know that you're burning pancakes. Okay, and if you definitely aren't paying attention, the oil will start on fire. It's going to smoke and then it's going to go to a flash point and start on fire, which is a dangerous situation. Okay, so now it says take this mixture, the egg, oil, milk mixture, add it into the flour mixture. Okay. And it says mix lightly. Okay, we're not beating this mixture together. We actually want clumps of flour into this. This is a quick bread, okay? We want clumps of flour because that's going to help us make sure that we have nice and fluffy pancakes. So you're just gonna mix this slightly. I shouldn't see flour in any portion of my mixture. Okay, so see how these are breaking? I want to get that mixed in, okay? But I don't necessarily need to mix this so much that all the little pieces are broken up, just like that, Okay, so see how I have chunks in there? The chunks are good. You need the chunks in order to make good pancakes. Okay, leave it nice and chunky. Okay. What was that? Sure. Okay. So now it says to check to make sure the pan is ready by flicking water onto it. What do you think? No. Still not. I didn't. Did you hear it? I didn't hear it. I had it down, but I didn't have an issue. Okay. The along with practicing measuring, you're going to be working on stovetop heat control. Okay. So you don't want this on high. What do we make on high? What's the only thing we cook on high on our stovetop? Nope, definitely not. What can I turn all the way up to high? Boiling water. Okay, that's about it. Everything else is lower than high because it's going to burn. Okay. Definitely don't put it on bacon. That would be a problem too. Okay. So it says pour or scoop the batter onto a hot griddle using approximately 1/4 a cup. So if I'm waiting, I'm kind of reading ahead in my recipe and making sure that I'm prepared for the next step. So I'm just waiting for my pan here. I'm going to try not to burn my document camera. Okay. Check it out. Well, a little bit. It's getting there. I do want to wait because it does make a difference in pancakes to have a hot griddle versus a cooler griddle. We want to make sure that we have it nice and piping hot before the pancake batter hits the griddle. Just a little bit it did. I want to. You'll definitely know. Okay, if I cracked an egg on there, I would want it to go. Okay. You hear it? Are you getting some? Okay. All right. So I'm going to take a 1/2 cup measuring cup, get my pancake batter, and I'm just going to pour it into a little circle. Okay. We don't want to make big giant pancakes because they don't get done in the middle. If you have a perfect way to do that at home, go ahead and do that at home. Okay. Just like that. Okay, now we want to wait, and what we're waiting for, it says, when your pancake's bubbles rise and pop, they can be flipped. Wiggle the corner of a turner under the edge of the pancake. Keep wiggling the turner until most of the pancake is on the turner. Carefully lift the pancake and flip. Brown shortly on the other side and serve hot. So this lab is going to be a little bit different in the fact that you are going to, so if I just poured these 3 pancakes on, I'm going to flip these 3 pancakes, or maybe 2 and 2. I'm going to flip these 2. I'm going to put these on my plate, and I'm going to go eat. Somebody else then in my group is going to put the next pancakes on. They're going to flip their own pancakes, so everybody has a turn to try and practice. And then they are going to go eat. And then the next person is going to be making their pancakes. We're not going to be able to eat together as a lab group like we normally do, but you should be able to, you will still be able to get out in time. All right. So you'll want to make sure that you are on task. The other thing that you can do is do dishes while you're waiting. So like if I was in the kitchen right now and somebody else is making their pancakes, I would be doing all of these dishes so that way we can keep things rolling, and then you will do a little bit better job at getting out even before the bell. I've had classes sitting down with their kitchens clean, checked out, and they're just sitting down and talking at the end of the hour because they're waiting for the bell to ring. Okay. How's our pancakes looking? Do you see the bubbles? Okay. So you want the bubbles to be able to, my thing here is a little bit smaller than my pan, so I'm moving my pan around. Usually you want to make sure if you have a big pan, you're using the big burner. you have a small, like a saucepan, you're using the small burner. But since we're making pancakes in the sewing room right now, we want to do the best that we can. Okay. So you can see that they're starting to bubble up. You're going to see the bubbles rise up to the top and they're going to pop. You want to make sure the bubbles are happening all around the pancake before you start, because otherwise one side could be getting done but not the other side. You can peek a little bit, okay, but be really careful. And when I peek, they're not brown at all. So I'm going to let it cook a little bit more. I'm sure that my griddle here, you know, it's nice and eclectic. It might be time for it to end its life in the FACS kitchen. Okay. So let's try this one just so that you can get a view. All right. So take your turner. You're going to take the corner of your turner, sneak it underneath the pancake. Okay. Then you're going to wiggle, 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 wiggle. Okay, until you get it all the way underneath the pancake. All right. You should be able to pick up the pancake without the pancake breaking or flopping over. Okay. Then, so what you're going to do is pick up the pancake and just flip. Okay. So you see how that one's, I would have let it go just a little bit longer, but it's probably because this is the first batch and my pan is not as hot as I would like it quite yet. Okay, again, corner of my turner, wiggle, 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 and flip. Okay, same thing. Okay, many of you will mess this up, no matter how hard I try to show you or how much I make you watch. Okay, it takes practice. Extra little chunk of burnt bit in there isn't going to hurt anybody. There we go. Okay. So now I'm going to let them brown a little bit on this side. I don't want to be smashing these pancakes. I don't want to be flipping them back and forth. That ends up in really flat pancakes. Okay. You just want to flip them over once. Wait for them to brown. If you need to peek, you can peek. Okay. Just look underneath. But you want to wait till they get brown. All right. What are we missing on your measuring sheet? What are we missing on your measuring sheet? So look at your sheet, boys and girls. Where is something that is not filled in? Okay, so the abbreviations are not filled in, right? Okay, so let's go through those. Tablespoon is a capital T. Teaspoon is a lowercase t. You're filling in the columns. I'm telling you right now the answers. You're filling them in. You should be able to look at your sheet and fill them in as I talk. Okay? Tablespoon is a capital T. Teaspoon is a lowercase t. Lowercase t. Little t. Okay? Ounce is OZ. Fluid ounce is FLOZ. Okay? Cup is a lowercase c. Dozen is DOZ. Package is PKG. What's next? SM. Medium MED. Large LG. Okay? So sometimes when you're looking at these, you're like, well, duh, Miss Palm, right? But if you're in the middle of a recipe and trying to get things done on time, you might be like, what's an LG pan? What's LG pan? I'm like, large pan, right? Okay. Approximately is APPROX. APPROX. Hour HR and minute MIN. Okay, some abbreviations that we commonly use in the kitchen. Where else do you have a blank spot? HR, MIN. Brown sugar. How do we measure brown sugar? Anybody know? Yes. Okay. Scoop. You're gonna scoop so like if it's you're gonna use a dry measuring cup. You're gonna scoop down into the brown sugar, but brown sugar gets packed into the cup. Okay. So it's like making a sandcastle. So brown sugar looks like sand. So you want to make a sandcastle by packing it into the cup. Try to use the side of the container to pack it into the cup. And then pack it in heaping full, level it off, so scrape, and then just use that section. So I would write pack in, scoop, scrape. Okay? Pack in, scoop, scrape. I think I win on pancake making. What do you think? It'll get better. Griddles are really nice for pancakes. Like if you have one of those like rectangle griddles, those cook pancakes really nicely. When I worked in the truck stop, we had a really big griddle that we would make pancakes on. Those all work really nice to have a nice and even amount of heat. Because right now you can see that there's a lot of heat on this one and half of this one. But look at my heat is not getting over here very well. That's why I'm having to keep moving my pan a little bit to make sure that I get some even heat. Okay. So you have dry ingredients, liquid ingredients, dry ingredients for measuring spoons, flour, brown sugar. How about butter? Some of you kind of had a rough time with butter. What could you do with butter? Yep. Another interruption. Story of my life. Yes. A new student? Okay, sounds good. You can just sit right there for now, hon. We'll figure life out, okay? We're making pancakes. Does that sound okay? All right. So, are you coming for next hour, probably? Okay, got it. Makes sense. So, oh, butter. I was talking about butter. What do you do to measure butter? Justice, what do you think? Yep. Yeah, just read the package and cut on the line. That easy. Okay? Stay tuned for what's going to happen next. I'll tell you. A1, I think.